Revenge with Karen.
I knew something was rotting the moment Cole used the word synergy in a meeting about printer toner. Man came in on day 3, sat in my chair, cracked open a Celsius, and started lecturing the whole ops floor like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs, if Jobs wore fake Rolexes and smelled like Axe body spray and bankruptcy. He pointed at the whiteboard, full of supply chain contingencies I'd spent weeks mapping out, and said, "Let's circle back on this bandwidth conversation offline." What bandwidth? We're drowning in expired licenses, half our vendors are threatening breach notices, and someone, probably him, is ghost editing access logs in the compliance portal. But I smiled, because that's what you do when the VP's son waddles in like he owns the building. You smile, nod, and let the rich boy play executive, hoping he'll get bored and wander off into a LinkedIn article about hustle culture. Only Cole didn't wander. He nested. He started showing up in meetings he wasn't invited to, rewriting task assignments, reassigning interns, even changed his email signature to Chief Ops Visionary and sent it to external clients. And you know what? While you're listening to this, maybe on your lunch break or while pretending to work, just take a second to hit the subscribe button and like this story, because apparently 93% of you ghosts listen without showing the team a little love. It's free, it helps us keep digging up these wild office tales, and honestly, it keeps me from throwing a keyboard through a drywall. Anyway, back to the chaos. I kept my head down, like always. It's the unspoken rule of the mid-level analyst. Don't rock the boat. Don't speak during strategic alignment meetings. And for the love of God, correct a VP's son when he accidentally mislabels $4.7 million as miscellaneous in a procurement report. You just smile and silently fix it at 10 p.m. while eating vending machine pretzels and listening to your soul evaporate. But lately, the vibe in the office had shifted. We were weeks away from a full-blown compliance sweep, external auditors, legal observers, even whispers of federal oversight if things didn't look clean. Everyone was stressed, skittish. HR was holding wellness town halls, which really meant passing out stress balls, and pretending like a free granola bar could undo the fact that our entire $75 million SAW contract with Nextrix had just imploded over mysterious version control issues no one could trace. Version control, my ass. Someone was tampering. You could smell the panic. And that's when Cole showed up. Fresh off a strategy immersion week, read, vacation in Cabo, he returned with a sudden interest in the compliance portal. Not kidding, Guy walked up to me with a thumb drive and asked, "What's the admin key for access recert logs?" I blinked at him and said, "That's not something I can share." He laughed, real casual, like I just told him his MX was declined at Olive Garden, and mumbled, "Come on, Jess. We're all on the same team." Yeah, team where only some of us go to jail. He started hovering. Late nights, weird hours. Twice I came in early and found lights on in my office. He brushed it off, just catching up on some backlog. What backlog? He didn't even know where the file server was until last Thursday. But the real kicker, he started copying people on emails, people from legal, people from records, and pretending like he'd discovered all the audit irregularities I had flagged months ago. Even used my phrasing in one, high risk of exposure in tiered license segmentation. Word for word. My blood boiled so hard I could fried an egg on my own rage. Still, I stayed silent. I've seen nepotism before. At least the others knew when to shut up and let the real workers mop up their mess. But Cole, he was too cocky, too twitchy, like he knew something was coming and was scrambling to get ahead of it. Then one morning, noticed a red folder sitting slightly off in my drawer. Thick, tucked halfway back, like it had been shoved there hastily. And that's when I knew something ugly was about to hit the fan. It was 6:48 a.m. when I unlocked the door to my corner of the operations floor. My coffee was still too hot to drink. My inbox was already mocking me with 47 unread flags, and the only light in the office was the sickly blue glow from my desk monitor, left on overnight. And I dropped my bag, booted up my terminal, and leaned back, half listening to the hum of the HVAC ducts rattling like a ghost trapped in the vents. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Fast, hesitant. Cole. He wasn't supposed to be in yet, hell. Half the time he showed up closer to noon, sunglasses still on, reeking of whatever downtown bar was hosting networking the night before. But there he was, creeping in like a raccoon at a trash can, dressed in wrinkled khakis and a quarter zip that probably cost more than my entire rent. I watched him from the corner of my eye as he passed my cube, slowed down, then backtracked. "Morning," he said, voice too cheery for someone who looked like he'd wrestled a hangover into submission 5 minutes ago. I nodded, fake smile. Bright and early. He laughed nervously, didn't make eye contact. Then he crouched, just for a second, right in front of my desk. Lower drawer, clicked shut with a soft thunk. He popped up fast like he'd dropped something, adjusted his shirt, mumbled something about client decks, and then vanished toward the break room. I didn't move, didn't even blink. I just stared at that drawer like it had sprouted fangs. It wasn't locked, I never bothered. Too many fire drills, too much junk. But now it felt radioactive. My stomach turned cold. That drawer hadn't been opened in days. The way his hand shook when he stood back up. That wasn't nerves, that was guilt. I didn't touch it, not yet. Instead, I turned slowly to the dusty webcam perched on the top shelf of my bookshelf, camouflaged between binders and a sad-looking succulent. See, I've had that camera running for months. Ever since a thumb drive vanished from my desk and showed up 2 weeks later in the lost and found, wiped clean. No one owned up to it. IT shrugged. Char offered me a coupon for a trust-building lunch seminar, so I set up my own surveillance. Quiet, local storage only, no cloud, I'm not an idiot. I tapped the login, fast-forwarded through last night's static, and froze the frame on 6:43 a.m. There he was, Cole, letting himself in with a borrowed access badge, probably his dad's. He beelined for my cube, eyes darting like a raccoon with anxiety. Red folder under his arm. Thick, glossy, not one of ours. He opened my drawer, stuffed it in, slammed it shut. Then he did something that made my skin crawl. He took a selfie, with my monitor in the background. It was quick, barely a second, but there was that smug little smirk again, the one he wore when he tried to explain what a burn rate was to the finance team. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't just some dumb mistake, wasn't another idiot legacy hire playing executive with fake spreadsheets and buzzwords. This was a setup, a frame job. And not a subtle one either. This was amateur hour, sloppier than a frat house PowerPoint. But if I hadn't seen it, if I'd come in at 7:15, opened my drawer, found that folder and panicked, maybe even turned it into legal thinking I was the one who found it. Yeah, they'd pin it on me. Hell, they might still try. So I leaned back, exhaled slow, and let the rage simmer into something cleaner. Colder, because I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to scream or report it or demand an HR meeting. No, I was going to wait, watch. And when the moment came, I'd make sure the match burned his fingers, not mine. The next morning, I dressed for war. Not heels, not flats, boots. Comfortable enough to run in, heavy enough to make a statement if I had to plant one on someone's neck. Hair back, minimal makeup. Expression neutral. The look of a woman who knows exactly where the bodies are buried and which shovel was used. Cole showed up late, of course. Waltzed in around 10:30, iced coffee in one hand, Bluetooth headset in the other, pretending to be on a call. I watched him walk by, all puffed up ego and coffee breath, and settle into the borrowed corner office he'd somehow claimed as his operations zone. He started doing what he always did when he felt nervous, talking too loud. He was on the phone with someone, bragging about landing a preliminary verbal from a partner in Atlanta. I knew that was crap. Our Atlanta partner had ghosted us weeks ago after Cole accidentally sent a contract draft to their competitor. But the hallway didn't need to know that. What the hallway did need to know was that Cole left his briefcase behind when he strutted out mid-call, heading for one of his client lunches that somehow always happened at the sushi place his dad's company expensed. And that briefcase, unlocked, wide open on the chair beside his desk, like an invitation. I waited until I heard the elevator ding and his voice disappear behind it. Then I moved. No hesitation, no panic, just precision. Walked down the hall, turned into his office like I belonged there, closed the door behind me, and sat. There it was, fake leather, poorly stitched, stuffed with a laptop, a bottle of cologne, and about 10 loose sheets of printouts he probably didn't understand. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo, time-stamped, clearly showing contents before anything else went in. Then, just as calmly, I reached into my tote and pulled out the red folder. still warm from my own hands. I'd kept it sealed in a Ziploc, untouched, ever since I found it in my drawer the day before. I slipped it into the briefcase, not on top. No, that's lazy. I wedged it behind his MacBook, partially sticking out like he'd meant to grab it quickly but forgot. Natural, intentional, another photo, time-stamped. Then I zipped it up, adjusted the strap, and walked back to my desk like I'd just been refilling my coffee. By the time Cole got back, smelling like overpriced sashimi and failed ambitions, I was elbows deep in license reports. Eyes on my screen, headphones in. Didn't even notice the bag. But I did. I noticed the faint tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes darted toward my desk every few minutes, like he was waiting for me to explode. He'd expected me to find the folder by now, maybe freak out, maybe go to HR, maybe do anything that could be twisted into erratic behavior or noncompliance. Instead, I gave him nothing, because I wasn't the one who left their compliance portal login open on someone else's computer last week. Yeah, that happened. Monday afternoon, I returned from lunch and found my desktop active. Mouse still warm. Cole had borrowed it during a meeting scramble, left in a rush, and forgot to log out. I didn't touch anything, just locked the screen and logged back in. But before it went dark, I saw it, a tab open to our internal compliance review tool, his username in the corner, and the page, Access Logs, with my name highlighted. It was all there, the breadcrumbs. Like he wanted to build a trail, only it was so stupidly obvious it might as well have come with a How to Frame Your Coworker for Dummies manual. That's when I knew this was deeper than just petty sabotage. Cole wasn't just some entitled failson trying to flex for his dad. He was desperate. And desperation makes people stupid. Wanted to throw me under the bus for whatever was about to hit the fan. Probably that $75 million contract everyone in leadership had stopped mentioning, like pretending it didn't exist would make the legal risk disappear. And if his plan worked, I'd be the non-compliant analyst, the scapegoat. But now he had the evidence in his possession. And my paper trail, clean, bulletproof, timestamps, camera footage, witnessless moves, cold-blooded prep. Just like that, I crossed the line. Not from innocent to guilty, no, from prey to predator. And I was just getting started. By Wednesday morning, the office was humming with the wrong kind of energy, the kind that makes people whisper in bathrooms and stare too long at closed doors. Nobody said it out loud, but we all felt it. Something was coming. An unmarked van had parked outside the south entrance. Legal had been seen pacing the executive hallway. Someone swore they saw our director of compliance, who hadn't been on site in 3 years, in the elevator. The phrase compliance sweep made its way into casual conversation like a venomous snake slithering under office chairs. By lunch, it was official. An internal audit was scheduled sometime this week, no date given. Just a memo from HR that felt more like a warning than an announcement. Cole, he was unraveling, stopped pretending to be charming and defaulted to snapping at anyone who crossed his path. Yelled at a data intern for not aligning report visuals with stakeholder expectations. The kid was formatting an Excel chart. Cole slammed the mouse out of his hand and then tried to act like it was a teaching moment. He didn't speak to me at all. Not a glance, not a grunt, not even one of his performative nods. Avoided my desk like it had a rattlesnake curled on the keyboard. Good, let him stew in it. But I kept my poker face solid. I smiled in meetings, made coffee like usual, complimented a senior manager's new haircut, which was a lie. He looked like a human Q-tip, and waited. Mid-afternoon, I got a message from Lorraine, records room, 4:15, casual. Lorraine had been at the company longer than anyone on the ops floor. She knew where every file lived, had access to what, and what versions had been accidentally revised after submission deadlines. She was the kind of woman who could tell you what was missing from a 3-year-old PDF just by glancing at the footer. I grabbed a decoy folder, took the long route to the records department, and slipped in the side entrance. She was waiting by the rolling shelves, sipping gas station coffee, and looking like someone's ex-wife who knew exactly what her ex was hiding under the floorboards. Didn't hear this from me, she said without preamble. But someone's been backdating files in the license archive. I blinked. Recently, MMHM, 2 weeks ago. Entries show as verified, but the timestamps don't match the modification logs. Sloppy. Like they thought the metadata wouldn't be audited. I didn't respond. I just raised an eyebrow. She sipped. I check any shared drives you've been added to recently, especially ones you didn't request access to. It hit me like a brick. Back at my desk, I ran a query on my badge history. We all had access logs. HR claimed it was for safety tracking, but we knew it was really for CYA during downsizing. I reviewed the last 10 days. There it was. 2 after-hours entries, one at 9:43 p.m., one at 12:17 a.m. I was home both nights, watching Netflix, eating leftovers, texting my sister. But according to the system, my badge was used to access the 5th-floor server room. My badge. I stared at the screen, heart rate ticking up one notch. Not panic, just recalculating risk. Either someone cloned my badge or someone with admin privileges had spoofed the logs. Neither was good, and Cole had access. Not direct, but by proxy. His father had override clearance, and that meant he wasn't just panicking. He was cornered. It escalated from idiot sabotage to felony-level tampering. And the dumbass thought he could pin the whole thing on me, the quiet analyst who never made waves. Well, I hope he enjoyed the calm before the storm, because the sweep was coming, and when it hit, I wasn't going under. He was. Thursday, 9:03 a.m. No warning, no calendar invite, no chance to rehearse a lie. They came in quiet, compliance always does. No suits, no shouting. Just 5 grim-faced people in black polos and steel-toed expressions, gliding through the lobby like heat-seeking missiles with clipboards. 2 others followed, observers. Legal, maybe external counsel. You could smell the liability insurance in their wake. The head of HR called a floor-wide hold in place. That's code for don't move unless you're bleeding. Phones stopped ringing. Slack fell dead. Even the intern who never stops humming that god-awful TikTok song fell silent. I didn't blink. I knew this was coming. I planned for it. But still, my pulse beat a war drum in my chest. Not fear, focus. Like when you line up a shot and the world goes razor sharp. Cole, however, that man turned the color of skim milk. He was 3 cubicles over when the audit team walked in. He tried to straighten his posture, cracked a joke to nobody about intense vibes, then bolted toward the break room like caffeine was gonna save him. Came back 2 minutes later and tried to pretend nothing happened. Too late. The compliance lead, Janine Morales, who I hadn't seen since the debacle with the procurement clawbacks, walked straight to the center of the floor and announced it. All personnel are to remain in their departments. Desks will be searched. Laptops will be collected. Phones will be inspected only with cause. If you need to use the restroom, raise your hand. No one leaves until we're finished. Could hear butts clenching across the floor. I just nodded and kept typing. My screen showed a dummy spreadsheet with Q3 training hours at the top. Looked boring enough. Meanwhile, my flash drive with every critical timestamp and photo was tucked deep in my sock, because no one ever checks the girl in cardigans. The sweep began. Quiet. Efficient. They worked in teams, 1 compliance officer with an observer. Top drawers, under keyboards, inside trash cans. Be shocked how many people hide crap under the keyboard. They reached my desk in under 10 minutes. I smiled, morning. Let me know if you need anything. They nodded. No small talk. My drawers, clean. My desktop, normal. My login history, boring. Nothing planted. Nothing touched. Just exactly what I wanted them to see. And yet, as one of them opened my lowest drawer and found nothing but a stapler and a linty pack of gum, I saw the briefest flicker of confusion in their eyes. Like they expected something. I leaned back. Problem? No, she said. Thank you for cooperating. As they moved on, I caught a whisper near the compliance cluster. They found something. My ears sharpened. A manager, low level but close to legal, leaned near another cube. They found it in his briefcase, he muttered. Red folder, tagged docs, tampered metadata. I didn't react, just kept typing gibberish into cell B14. But inside, I was screaming with joy, not because he was caught, but because it was that folder, my folder, in his briefcase. They didn't say his name, but they didn't have to. 10 minutes later, I watched them call Cole from across the room. He was pretending to scroll his phone, nervously tapping the screen like it might open a trapdoor beneath him. Cole Madsen, said Janine. He looked up. Yeah, come with us. He stood slow, tried to chuckle. Is this about the resource alignment project? Cause I now. He nodded like a man going to the gallows and followed her to the glass conference room. And then the door shut. The blinds closed, and Cole Madsen, self-declared chief ops visionary, did not return for an hour. The door slammed open like someone had been kicked through it. Cole burst out of the glass conference room, red-faced and sweating, jacket half off, collar crumpled like he'd wrestled it in a broom closet. His eyes darted, wide and unhinged, hunting for someone to blame. Then they landed on me. You, he barked, loud enough to make everyone freeze mid-email. The entire ops floor turned as one, some peeked over cubicle walls, others stopped mid-step in the aisles. You could have dropped a pen and heard it echo. You set me up. I didn't blink. He stormed toward my desk like a Wall Street toddler, wagging a trembling finger. You knew I had a meeting. You planted that folder, you had access. You were in the compliance tool last week. This is sabotage. You've been trying to get me fired since I got here. I calmly removed my earbuds and swiveled to face him, just as Janine and 2 HR reps rounded the corner behind him like security shadows. Cole didn't notice. He was too busy unraveling. You think you're clever? Huh, he spat. Think you're untouchable because you've been here longer. You think Daddy's gonna save you? Guess what, Jess? I've got authority. You're gonna burn for this. Still, I said nothing. My heartbeat was steady, my face neutral. I reached into my drawer, not the one he'd used, the upper right, quietly retrieved a sealed manila envelope I'd placed there that morning. The seal unbroken, labeled with today's date, tucked under a sticky note that said Plan B. I stood up slowly and handed it to Janine. Evidence, I said, for the record. She took it with a raised eyebrow and passed it to the HR rep, who opened it gingerly like it might explode. Inside, 2 printed photographs. One of Cole's briefcase with its contents spread clearly, laptop, cologne, documents. The second, same angle, same lighting, same briefcase, now with the red folder tucked behind the MacBook. Both time-stamped. Both taken from my phone. HR rep didn't say a word. He just showed it to Janine, who exhaled through her nose like someone who'd seen this movie before and was just annoyed it had a sequel. Cole took a step back. What is that? He croaked. That doesn't prove anything. You could fake that. That's not chain of custody. That's not you left your briefcase in a public-facing office, Janine said flatly. Unattended. You claimed exclusive possession. Now that's in dispute. He's been going through my stuff. She accessed my laptop last week. Janine didn't even turn toward him. She has never logged in under your credentials. We checked. What we did find was an active session from your profile on her desktop, left open and idle for 30 minutes. She probably planted that too. Via psychic powers, I muttered, still dead calm. Cole looked around, suddenly realizing no one was buying his act. The office, once too scared to meet his eyes, was now watching him like a raccoon in the daylight, cornered, flailing, and clearly diseased. I want to speak to my father, he snapped. You're not under arrest, Janine said coolly, but you are suspended pending investigation. Legal will contact you by COB. That's illegal. She's framing me. She's been plotting this for weeks. She has it out for me. Finally, I spoke. One sentence. Cole, only thing I've plotted is how to survive your incompetence without losing my pension. That got a snort from someone 2 cubes down. Maybe James from Dev. Didn't matter. The dam had cracked. Cole's face twisted, somewhere between rage and panic. But I didn't look away. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smirk because it wasn't over. Not yet. By 5:17 p.m., the air in the building felt like soup. Nobody had left their desk in hours. Phones were on mute. Meetings canceled, Slack silent. The only sound was the clack of a few too dedicated finance analysts who hadn't gotten the memo or who were too scared to stop working, lest they be next. And then came the ripple. It started in the lobby. Security tapped into our floor's group chat. He's here. He was unmistakable. Graham Laird, CEO, company founder. Godfather of this entire rickety empire. He hadn't been to our floor in over 6 months, preferred to rule from the strategy bunker downstate, rarely flying in unless someone died or something bigger was about to. A few people stood, peeking around corners like prairie dogs. I didn't. I knew why he was here. He didn't say a word to anyone on the way in. Just a sharp nod to Janine, a brief pause to greet legal, and then he disappeared into the boardroom with the force of a man who'd cleared entire departments before his second cup of coffee. We waited. 20 minutes passed, then 30. At 6:02 p.m., the door opened again. He walked out. His jacket was off, sleeves rolled, and he looked pissed, not yelling pissed. Worse, cold, measured, like a surgeon about to cut deep. Everyone froze, half stood without realizing it. One guy dropped his pen and let it roll across the tile. Graham didn't look at anyone directly. He just stood in the middle of the floor, hands clasped behind his back, scanned the room like a general preparing to issue an execution order. Then he said it. Who was the last person to have eyes on the compliance packet? Simple, quiet, but it hit like a bomb. No one spoke. Not Janine, not legal, not HR. Not even Cole, who had slinked back into the corner after trying and failing to weasel his way into the good graces of the auditors again. Silence. I waited 2 heartbeats, then 3. Then I stood. He brought it. I said clearly, nodding toward Cole. I returned it. That's all I said. Nothing more, nothing dramatic, but the words snapped like a whip in the air. Graham turned to look directly at me. His eyes weren't angry. They were surgical, like he was cutting through bone and checking for rot. He nodded, once, then turned back to Janine. I want digital chain of custody logs, badge entries, and full metadata comparisons. Tonight, if there's any variation between testimony and digital records, flag it. Yes, sir, she said. Then he looked to legal. I want to know how that folder left records, and I want a list of everyone who had edit access before and after the metadata changes. They nodded too. Then finally, his eyes landed on Cole. Not a word, not even a glance of recognition. Just a pause, a long one. And then he turned away and walked back into the boardroom. The blinds shut. Cole looked like he might puke. And me, I sat down, calm, silent. But the voltage in the room was humming like a live wire under the floor, because everyone knew something had shifted. The air wasn't thick with fear anymore. It was thick with inevitability. It happened at 6:49 p.m. Not with sirens, not with shouting. Just the heavy tread of 2 security officers walking onto the floor with a third man behind them, badge on the hip, calm as you please. Didn't look around, didn't ask for directions. They knew who they were here for. Graham didn't come back out of the boardroom. He didn't need to. He had made one phone call, quiet, direct, and now the wheels were grinding to a halt around Cole Madsen's very expensive, very doomed briefcase. The officers headed straight for the cluster of cubicles where Cole was sitting, knees bouncing, leg jittering like a jackhammer. When he saw them, he stood too fast, nearly knocking over his ergonomic chair. Wait, what is this? What's going on? He said, trying to laugh like it was all some performance review prank. The lead officer, a square-faced guy with a clipboard, didn't smile. Cole Madsen? Yeah. He puffed up, glanced toward HR like maybe they'd swoop in and save him. They didn't. You're being detained under suspicion of corporate fraud, evidence tampering, and breach of data integrity. Have a chance to speak with your counsel. Please gather your personal items. Cole's face drained of all its fake charm. This is insane, he snapped, voice cracking. You're detaining me? I run this department. This is political. It's a witch hunt. He turned to the floor, scanning for allies. None came. Then his eyes landed on me. And he lunged verbally, not physically, though for a second I thought he might actually throw something. This is her, he shouted, pointing like a man drowning. Jessica, she planted it. She's been targeting me for weeks. Check her devices. She's been manipulating records, and she didn't plant anything. Janine cut in, stepping forward with legal. We have keycard logs, access metadata, camera footage, and corroborated timestamps. Mr. Madsen, we've cross-referenced every single version of the compliance file you touched, including the one in your briefcase. The company lawyer stepped up then. Old and bored like this was item number 6 on a long list of predictable outcomes. He opened a manila folder and read flatly, multiple instances of unauthorized file duplication, edit history inconsistencies, a login to an unassigned sandbox server using credentials connected to your internal ID. We have more than enough. Cole's mouth opened, but no sound came out. You could feel him deflate. All that swagger and posturing collapsing into raw, naked panic. I didn't mean, but it was too late. The officer gently took him by the elbow. This way, sir. He tried to pull free. No, you're making a mistake. This is a setup. You can't do this. I know my rights. They didn't argue. They just walked him out. Cole's voice echoed behind them, growing smaller with each step toward the elevator. She framed me. She framed me. This isn't over. Do you hear me? The doors slid closed. Silence returned. No applause. No one breathed. Then, slowly, I stood behind my desk. Arms crossed, back straight, expression blank. the still point in a room that had spun itself into chaos. I didn't speak, didn't gloat, didn't even blink, because I didn't need to. The truth was already screaming on my behalf. They called me in at 8:12 the next morning. No calendar invite, just a quiet knock on my cube wall and a nod from HR. Conference room A. Walk down the hallway felt surreal. Everyone looked up as I passed, some with curiosity, a few with cautious admiration, and one intern with unfiltered awe like I'd just stepped out of an action movie. The door was already open. Inside, Graham Laird, legal counsel Melissa Vaughn, and Janine from compliance. 3 chairs, 1 envelope. No performance review clipboard. No HR pamphlet. Just coffee and a silence that hummed with finality. I sat down, hands folded neatly. Graham looked at me for a long moment, then gave the smallest nod. You handled this, he said quietly, better than most directors would have. Janine added, we've reviewed your footage, your log coordination, your access reporting. You were surgical, precise. You left no room for interpretation. Melissa chimed in, flipping through a file, which is exactly what made the difference in preventing Cole's narrative from gaining traction. If you'd reacted emotionally or gone to HR first, this entire mess might have landed very differently. I said nothing, because they already knew I knew. Graham leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. We'd like to offer you a position. Senior Risk Analysis. Internal Investigations Unit. Flexible schedule. Discretionary bonus structure. Full autonomy. It was a good offer. It was also 6 weeks too late. I gave a polite smile, not the fake kind I'd used in meetings with Cole. This one had real teeth behind it, thank you. But I've accepted a different offer, I said. Melissa arched a brow. May I ask where? Private Compliance Consulting, I said. Smaller firm, better coffee. Janine smirked. Graham just nodded once, slow, like he respected it. We'll miss you, he said. I doubt it, I replied, standing up. The conference room echoed behind me as I walked out. Back at my desk, had 1 box already half-packed. Nothing dramatic, just the essentials. Thumb drive, 2 pens that actually worked, a framed photo of my dog in a Halloween costume, and the tiny fake plant Lorraine gave me after my last non-promotion. Speaking of, she showed up 10 minutes later with 2 coffees and her usual smug grin. 2 sugars, 1 stab of vengeance, she said, handing me a cup. You know, if you ever get bored being respectable, consulting pays better. I've seen the way you redline contract clauses. It's poetic, I chuckled. I'll think about it. She looked at the half-packed box, then back at me. You good? Yeah, I said, real good. She nodded, tapped the edge of my cube, and left without another word. I placed the last item in my box, my worn badge, its corner cracked from years of quiet endurance, and closed the lid. No farewell party. No HR balloon bouquet. Just the sound of a busted HVAC duct rattling above me, and the knowledge that the building would never quite forget what happened here. Because the quiet ones remember. And now, so would they. I walked out with my back straight and my box light. No grudges, no speeches, just truth. And as I stepped into the elevator and the doors whispered shut, I thought, I didn't need to destroy him. I just let him carry the match. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.